Maya. Would you like to introduce yourself? Maybe pronouns and how you're finding London?
Yeah, so hi everybody. My name is Maya. I use they, them pronouns. And London has been the most intense, crazy experience of my life, but not in a bad way. Queer spaces both feel very visible and also somewhat hard to enter into in some ways.
Yes.
And I think I felt a lot of like kind of weird, not imposter syndrome, but just kind of like in some spaces like I haven't felt queer enough, or like I felt um like too edgy or too mainstream. It's like it's been somewhat hard to kind of find a queer space that works for me.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That was actually a similar thing for me actually when I first started uni. Actually, a lot of my friends were straight.
Yeah.
And I was really shocked by this. That might sound weird, but I was like, why do I not have a sudden community of entirely gay friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, I in high school I had always had kind of a mix, but we were kind of like, I didn't know this until after actually, that we were the gay friend group. So I'm kind of used to like having big groups of like bi people, but it wasn't really like because we were bi that we were all friends.
It's just you kind of get drawn together.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's what I think that taught me also too. Like I may have a different perspective on this than other people.
Yeah.
Partially because I think I haven't experienced as much like open discrimination as other people. Like my family's very accepting, my community in high school is very accepting. So for me, I haven't needed those queer spaces as much. Potentially from like a place of, I feel like for me, like being in a place where you can live as yourself and feel comfortable as a queer person and be able to talk about things, even if you have people in your community that are straight, that's kind of the most important thing to me.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask why you were drawn to London as a queer person?
So I think like building off of this, I think I was drawn to London more as an international student and less as a queer person. Like I don't know if that fully was part of my mindset, but I think on some level, I knew that I grew up in somewhat of a smaller community, so I knew that living in a bigger city would mean that there would be more people that were both in queer communities and like discovering their sexuality. And I do think like the appeal of London for anyone coming to this city is kind of like that there's so much opportunity for those spaces to exist. So like even if you're not consciously thinking about it, you're thinking about a big city, which is automatically going to have a queer space.
Kind of linked to that, when was the first time that, because you kind of discussed feeling maybe a little bit separate from queer spaces at first, when was the first time, or have you achieved it yet, that you felt like really, like you kind of cracked the queer community, that you'd really kind of entered queer space?
I think that it's a good question. I think that going to so I went out a lot in like I went clubbing and dancing and stuff a lot last year, and so I think that finding those spaces like gay clubs and even like spaces with a lot of like queer women just like being in like a club in general, or like there were certainly a lot of like more student led or like younger club spaces, disco spaces that really felt very accepting towards queer people. And I think that was really when I felt like I could just kind of like that was more of my scene. I don't know like if this is relevant, but I've also never been like, something that I found was interesting about like this whole journey is like people are very focused on pronouns.
Yes.
And I, in discovering my gender, have not been, I didn't begin to be as focused on pronouns. For me, it's more of like an internal thing. And so when people still use she, her, like I still identify as a woman, like I'm a non-binary woman. And so like to me, I think my view on gender is still very much like I'm still acknowledging the fact that like I have different views to people that are transgender, or people that are, you know, have different views to me, and I have trans friends I've had conversations with about this. But it's interesting now, like that was never something I was trying to figure out internally, and then now I've actually tried more to like reintroduce pronouns as just like a part of life too. But it's interesting, like I think how people deal with gender is like it comes in different ways. Yeah, I think actually bisexuality, because I'm pansexual, so but it also does mean that I still can date men.
Yes.
And so I think for some reason that makes people view me as like being only attracted to men, or having only like people that could be available to me as men. And I also feel sometimes slightly apart from like purely lesbian queer spaces, because I don't entirely feel like I'm fully like understanding of them, and they're not fully understanding of me, and so there can be some difficulty with that.
No, I think there are also issues within the queer community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely seems to be a really weird thing between lesbians and like bisexual or pansexual people, which I don't fully understand. But yeah.
I think it's more just like, I think I understand that people there for so long there were binaries drawn within sexuality. Like, I do understand why, you know, if you liked women, then you were automatically labeled as a lesbian for so long, and like there's so much discourse around that, and then being straight. And so like I understand how it's hard for those two things to overlap, but I'm personally of the view, for both gender and sexuality, that everything is a spectrum. Nightlife can be a really fun way to kind of have that escapism, but also you shouldn't feel unsafe no matter who you are. I think reading and like getting into more like queer theory and literature, especially as a university student,
Yes.
helps you to kind of situate some of like the academic like side and like understanding it within your context of learning, which I've always really liked. I read this book, I recommend to all viewers. It's called Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl.
One word to sum up your queer London experience.
I would actually say that the word experience sums up my queer experience. I think that London, more than anything, has given me just like countless experiences and interactions with people that I just value. And I think that's like what has built my relationship with the city.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.